Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a long time that I haven't taken another practice test for all of you. I've been quite busy with my classes and everything. Starting from July 1st, I think they updated Duolingo. Really, they updated their question format, and I think it's right. It's really a good time for me to take another practice task for you. So we're gonna look at the new question types that they add, and we're gonna look at the question types that they remove. So yeah, let's get started. So this is the score that I achieved on the real test. So yeah, as usual, let's get to the video.
Where did you splash them? Where did you splash them? The audience gave him an ovation for 10 minutes. The audience gave him an ovation for 10 minutes.
The company prioritized the use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process. The company prioritized the use of recycled materials during the manufacturing process. They received praise for their good behavior. They received praise for their good behavior.
Despite graduating years ago, he still has access to his university email account. Despite graduating years ago, he still has access to his university email account. I expected green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs. I expected green lawns and quiet streets in the suburbs.
Their first day at work was successful. Their first day at work was successful.
You are a school teacher, aren't you? I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble. I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble. I felt very sorry that I had put them to so much trouble.
You and your friend have recently gotten part-time jobs as lab assistants for a professor. You are discussing how the job is going. You and your friend have recently gotten part-time jobs as lab assistants for a professor. You are discussing how the job is going. You and your friend have recently gotten part-time jobs as lab assistants for a professor. You are discussing how the job is going.
It's going good. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, it's a lot of work. But it's really interesting to see how everything works and to be a part of the process. Yeah, definitely. I'm just glad that we were able to get these positions. Absolutely. Everything is really organized and planned out ahead of time, which makes our jobs a lot easier.
You and your friend have recently gotten part-time jobs as lab assistants for a professor. You are discussing how the job is going.
In this picture, I can clearly see that an elderly woman who seems to be around 50 or 60 is trying to make clothes. To be specific, she's actually trying to sew, and she's trying to print some types of flowers on a cloth. And I think she's really focusing on a job. And I can also see that she is using both of her hands to make sure that the design is not affected negatively. And I noticed that both the designs that is in her hand and the design that is beside her hands are both flowery designs. So I think she really loves that kind of style, and now she's trying to print that out on the cloth. I can also see that the sewing machine is black and it's a little bit outdated, not very popular during these days, but because she's just an elderly woman, an old woman, so she is trying to make the clothes with that little thing. And when I look at her very clearly, she is wearing a blue blouse, which seems to be quite soft, and it is also a very great clothing, especially if you're trying hard, because it's quite cool and it really makes you comfortable. She's also wearing a glass, and of course, obviously, she's trying to concentrate on her job, and yeah, that's it. A time that I felt really encouraged to learn about something new that I previously was not interested in was actually to learn Chinese. So I noticed that Chinese becomes a very popular language, and the global economy of China is also progressive and increasing. So it becomes a responsibility for most young people to be familiar with Chinese. But at first, I was hesitant to learn it because I overheard that Chinese was quite difficult to learn. So I really didn't have a chance to try that because I was literally trapped in my own disbelief of myself. But of course, one of my friends, actually, he is one of my close friends, and he encouraged me to learn Chinese because at that time he was learning Chinese, and he mentioned that learning Chinese would be extremely beneficial for me because it first encourages my brain activity, and then second, it can also give me a chance, especially if I apply to some high profile companies in the future. So I really follow his advice and I started learning Chinese. So and then I started learning it, and it really sparked my interest in it because normally I'm very interested in learning languages, and of course right now Chinese also becomes one of my favorite languages to learn because Chinese is it's really interesting for me.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about cost-saving strategies. Tell me what people do to save money.
The most significant way, the most popular way that most people do just to save money is obviously recycling. So they try to reuse the items that they have already used. For example, they might refill the plastic bags that they were given when they shop, or sometimes they also would like to, I don't know, buy some recycled items like vintage items. I think by doing so, you can really reduce the amount of money that you have to spend. I think recycling is also quite beneficial for the environment.
Thanks. I have another question. How do you think planning ahead can help save money?
Planning ahead is a very great strategy, especially if you are a student or if you're just someone who is trying to survive with your own money. So if you can plan ahead, you will know what kind of items that are really necessary for you, and of course you have to buy them. But you will also have a chance to notice the items that are not very necessary for you, and you might not end up buying them, especially if you have a plan. So I think if you have a very strategic plan to buy the things that are necessary for you, then it's quite beneficial for you.
Thanks. Let me ask you another question. Why might someone choose to repair an item instead of buying something new?
I think repairing is really a great option for everyone. As I mentioned earlier in the first question, recycling it's a very great way it's a very great way not only for you to lower your budget but also for the environment because it can really reduce the amount of plastic or I don't know whatever the items that you're using. So that's a very great thing. I really think that everyone should repair the items, especially if they are still applicable. Yeah.
Thanks for discussing cost-saving strategies with me. Now I'd like to change topics and ask you a few questions about zoos. Describe some animals that are common in zoos.
Um, For me, the most common animal in zoos obviously is tigers. Many people say that tigers are quite rare to see, but for me, especially, I've visited around like 4 to 5 countries, and I always saw like a tiger in almost every zoo. So I would say that's literally the most common animal. But there are actually many other common animals that the zoos keep. But for me, my favorite animal is the tiger. So I always pay great attention to them.
I see. Let me ask you another question. Discuss the pros and cons of having a zoo in a city.
The pro of having a zoo in a society is that it can really share awareness about the animals. It can be quite educational, especially for very young children, and it can be a very great help, especially just to keep very endangered animals. But at the same time, zoos are very awful and appalling areas, especially for the animals, because they are like prisoners. You actually the animals are locked in the areas. So I would say that's a very strong downside of having a zoo in a society.
Interesting. I have another question. Talk about ways that a zoo can protect an endangered species.
The very first thing that zoos can do to protect endangered animals is, of course, keeping many animals as much as possible. So I have heard some news that like the population of tigers, wild tigers, are declining. But if the zoos can keep them, especially in a very proper way, of course, in a very systematic way, in the most humane way, then I think it's a very good choice for tigers because they can really they can literally breed many tigers as much as they want. So it's very great for the earth.
Thanks for talking about zoos with me. Have a nice day.
Um, from my perspective, one of the most important events in history that has ever happened was, I think, COVID-19 pandemic that we experienced in 2019, 2020. And actually, that event was quite significant for almost everyone across the world at the time, because it was firstly a global pandemic, so it shocked almost everyone living in this world. I think even for some animals, I would say. So, although I don't know exactly how it started or how it spread it out across the globe, but I did learn that it killed many people. There were many casualties because of this event, and it also altered many geopolitical point of view. It also affected negatively to some, not some, the many business enterprises across the world. So, as a young guy myself, as a young person myself, that event was quite significant, and it was also extremely brutal. And I think that would be one of the events that I will always remember until I die. So, okay, so let's talk about the next question. How would my life be different if this event had never happened? If this event had not happened, my life would have been quite different in terms of freedom, in terms of making friends, in terms of my education, you know. So, because of that event, we were isolated in our apartments, in our houses. You know, the authorities didn't let us go out because, you know, they were quite afraid that the viruses will spread out. I think I really understand them. So we were actually forced to live in our confined areas for a long time, and it was extremely challenging for all of us. I think it also affected me in terms of making friends. You know, I lost contact with some of my friends. You know, I really didn't have a chance to meet them. So, yeah, it was quite tragic, I would say. But from this historic event, there are actually a very great thing that we can learn. You can die almost like instantly, and like every day. You don't know that you're gonna die, but bad things will always happen. And so because of that, I did learn that we have to love each other more. You have to show respect to your parents. You have to show your love to parents, because, you know, there were actually a few of my friends who actually lost their parents in this pandemic. So this pandemic really taught us a lot, and especially to show our compassion, to show our love to people, and of course to communicate each other in a very great and passionate way. So that is something that I learned, and so from that event right now, I'm trying to be good as much as I can.